Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah nahmaduhu wa nasta'inuhu wa nastaghfiruhu wa nu'minu bihi wa natawakkalu alayhi. Wa na'udhu billahi min shururi anfusina wa min sayyiati a'malina. Man yahdihillahu fala mudilla lahu wa man yudlil fala hadiya lahu. ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له ونشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله تبارك وتعالى عليه وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما كثيرا كثيرا. أما بعد فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. اللهم بارك على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما باركت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. صدق الله العظيم. Alhamdulillah. Continue on with the story of Umar radiallahu ta'ala an. Someone can close the door inshallah. If you don't want me reading your messages, can I flip the screen?
Sure.
A message keeps popping up. Alhamdulillah. Speaking about Umar radiallahu ta'ala an. Did I mention the story of a boy who passed away due to the fear of Allah in the time of Umar radiallahu an? In the last session? No? Sometimes I write it down, but then I forget, did I mention this or not? So, the story goes that during the era of Umar radiallahu an, there was a young boy, more or less a teenager, who was very punctual in his salah. So as he would come to the masjid to catch the Isha prayer, he would go back home. Along the way there was a home with a very attractive young lady. She enticed him from time to time. It didn't work until he fell into the trap. Once coming into the home, and as he was in seclusion with the sister, immediately he was able to recall a verse of the Quran. إِنَّ الَّذِينَ اتَّقَوْا إِذَا مَسَّهُمْ طَائِفٌ مِّنَ الشَّيْطَانِ تَذَكَّرُوا فَإِذَا هُمْ مُبْصِرُونَ. So as this verse played within his mind, he screamed and fainted. Upon fainting, the girl, seeing what just happened before herself, she quickly asked one of her slave girls that, come, let's take the body and put it outside of his house. So they did so. When the father realized that my son's resting against my door, he came out, picked him up, brought him inside the house. And he asked his son what happened. The son had told the entire incident. And when at the time when the father requested, which ayah was it that you recalled thus putting you in the state that you went in? He mentioned it was the verse, إِنَّ الَّذِينَ اتَّقَوْا إِذَا مَسَّهُمْ طَائِفٌ مِّنَ الشَّيْطَانِ. The near translation of it, verily those who fear Allah, when the devil comes to them, entices them, or imposes, an act of sin upon them, تَذَكَّرُوا, they remember Allah, فَإِذَا هُمْ مُبْصِرُونَ, right away their eyes open, they become awakened, they become God-fearing, in the state of being more conscious of Allah, and they're saved from such traps of the devil. So this was the verse I recalled. And when for the second time he told the father which verse it was, upon reciting, he screamed, fainted, but this time did not get up. He passed away. This happened overnight. The father went and buried the son. Next morning the news had reached Umar radiallahu an, that this is what happened to the boy. So Umar radiallahu an mentioned, why did you not tell me of the incident? Take me to his grave. They took him upon the gravesite, and upon standing on the grave of the boy, Umar radiallahu ta'ala, he mentioned, وَلِمَنْ خَافَ مَقَامَ رَبِّهِ جَنَّتَانِ. Those who fear Allah, they are given 2 abodes within Jannah. They are given twice as much within Jannah. They are given 2 gardens within Jannah in itself. And after reciting this verse, the boy called out from the grave that, "Oh Umar, you were speaking about the verse, I am living the verse. You talk about what Allah promises, I'm enjoying the promise Allah has made. Allah has fulfilled His promise." One thing I must add upon this is, as we cover some of the stories of Umar radiallahu anh, and we come to see such miracles taking place in the time of Umar radiallahu anh, understand one thing. Miracles were only performed by the Anbiya alayhimus salatu wassalam. Extraordinary events. However, the act of the miracle in itself, the mu'jiza in itself, no longer will happen. But more or less some signs will be shown to the friends of Allah. Because prophethood has ended. Therefore, the mu'jizat have also come to an end. But certain events that seem out of the extraordinary will yet still take place, just to further prove the signs to the people and the masses. So in the time of Umar radiallahu ta'ala an, as you witness and hear such incidents, understand one thing. That if today our iman comes close to the level of the iman of the Sahaba, by Allah we will also witness such things happening in our daily lives. If the state of our iman, the level of our taqwa, our piety, our righteousness, who we are, if we become even as as close as possible to what we can to the iman and the level of taqwa of the Sahaba, we ourselves will see such incidents happen before our eyes. They will happen and you will witness them. It was because of the taqwa and the iman of the Sahaba that they used to see these things every day. A voice from the grave called out. They believed in it. A voice from the unseen was heard. They listened to it. An extraordinary event happened before them. They heard it. They listened to it. They believed it. They saw something from the unseen. They believed in it. Because their level was to that stage. With us, our level has become so low. We've become so weak within our faith that, these things don't move us. Sometimes people say, no, show me something. I must see something to believe within it. Even when, subhanAllah, they somehow miraculously are shown something, even then they're in a doubt. So if we ourselves come to a near level of their iman, we ourselves in this time will see certain events taking place. So Umar radiallahu ta'ala, he mentioned this too. The boy who was buried within the grave, the boy called out, وَلِمَنْ خَافَ, as he mentioned, "Oh Umar, you speak about the verse, I am living the verse." I mentioned last time that inshallah today's session more or less I will devote more time in speaking about the occurrences and the incidents that took place whilst Umar radiallahu ta'ala would roam the streets of Medina as a guard overnight. He was Amirul Mu'mineen, but yet he held the safety of the citizens to his heart. He himself will roam the streets of Medina in knowing and assuring himself that everything is safe and sound. There's nothing to worry about. People are fast asleep. No one is distressed. No one is disturbed. No one is being bothered. Nothing is happening that I'm not aware of. This was the state of him being the leader of the Muslim. So upon an occasion, Umar radiallahu ta'ala an, alongside with Abdurrahman ibn Auf radiallahu an, when they went to scout the streets of Medina during the night, Umar radiallahu ta'ala an had come across a house. From it he heard a cry of a child. And he left it be. But as he heard the cry, he couldn't ignore. So he went into the home and he saw that there was the mother who was trying to silence her child. So he asked that, "What's wrong with you? Why do you not attend to the need of your child? Why is he crying?" So she remained silent, and then Umar radiallahu anh, he left. After some time, as he came back for another round or so later, in the later portion of the night, the sound, the cry of the child had grown. It had increased. Umar radiallahu anh walked into the home and said, "What is wrong with you? It seems to me that you are a terrible mother. Why is it that your son is still crying? Your child is still crying. The night has passed and he refuses to stop crying. You're not attending to him. What is wrong with you? Tell me, why is he crying? So she, not knowing that it is Umar radiallahu anh, she mentioned that, "O servant of Allah, you've disturbed my night. You keep coming back. O servant of Allah, you've disturbed my night. The reason why the boy is crying, my child is crying, because I refuse to give him milk. I don't want to give him milk because I'm trying that he stops drinking milk, his mother's milk, because Amir al-Mu'mineen has stipulated a certain amount for every child that is within a Muslim household after he stops feeding from the milk of his mother. So I want this child to stop drinking my milk so that Amir al-Mu'mineen can also give us that amount, whatever it is." So after hearing this, Umar radiallahu ta'ala was in a shock. He became afraid as to what just happened before him. So he asked, "How old is he? How old is he? How old is the child?" She mentioned a few months. Umar radiallahu anh mentioned, "No, don't do this to the child. Feed him, provide to him." And then as he came out of the house next morning for Fajr Salah, he led the prayer. As he started reciting the Quran, he cried so profusely. He started to cry so much that the Sahaba mentioned we were not able to understand which ayah Umar radiallahu anh is reciting. We couldn't even listen to the words of the Quran any longer. That's the state he fell in. And after completing the Salah, Umar radiallahu anh kept crying. He mentioned that, "May you be destroyed, O Umar. How many children have you killed? How many children have you killed?" Because it was the rule of Umar, it was the law of Umar radiallahu ta'ala an, that after that certain age when the child stops drinking milk, from Baytul Mal, a certain amount would be stipulated for the child, for his upbringing, for his needs and so. More of a welfare system. So he mentioned, "It was I who set up that system." And because of that, parents became, to some extent greedy in wanting to have that amount beforehand. So, "Oh Umar, how many children have you killed?" So from that day, he passed the law that from this moment onwards, the moment a child is born, the income would be given. The X amount of wealth would be given to that family. So Umar radiallahu ta'ala an, as he comes to know of this in one of the nights. Another night, Umar radiallahu ta'ala an, as he's passing by, he comes across a man who's sitting at the front of his door. So he hears, a wailing sound from the inside, a sound in pain. So he asked that, "Who are you and what's going on? What is this sound that I'm hearing of pain?" So the man mentions that the sound is of my wife. She is expecting soon, and I've come to the door, I've come to seek the help of Amir al-Mu'mineen, to seek his assistance financially. That the poor state I'm in, I'd like to seek a few favors from him, not knowing that he is Amir al-Mu'mineen. Understand, many times there are a lot of travelers who would come by and would not have face-to-face interaction immediately with Umar radiallahu ta'ala an. It was only through the passage of time that comes to know, oh, he is Amir al-Mu'mineen. Because the lifestyle he lived, he was an ordinary man. You walk into the masjid, someone's laying on the ground. Where is your leader? Amir al-Mu'mineen. Oh, there he is in the corner, laying down, sleeping. There he is, resting. Is that him? Yes, that's him. So it took some time for travelers and those who were new to the town to come to know who Umar radiallahu anh is. So he mentioned, my wife is expecting. Do you need some help? Is there someone assisting her? No, there isn't. Stay here, I'll be back. He rushes home, asks his wife, Kalthum, that would you like to assist someone today? Would you like to gain a fee reward today for the night? She mentioned, sure. He mentioned, this is a story, this is the case. Come along with me. Take a cloth, take some oil, take some food, dates, dough, as to what you can, and let's go. So as they go to the house of this stranger, he mentions to his wife, Kalthum, that go and tend to her, whilst he remains outside and starts to cook the meal, the food. And as he's cooking, he's preparing for the food, his wife comes out and mentions that, oh Amir al-Mu'mineen, give your friend the glad tidings of a boy, good news of a boy. When the stranger heard Amir al-Mu'mineen, that he fell at a distance, that he's Amir al-Mu'mineen, people had that, this aura, this sense of fear, that we need to be as cautious as we can whenever we're close to Amir al-Mu'mineen, Umar radiallahu anh. So when he heard it's Amir al-Mu'mineen, right away he jumped away. So Umar radiallahu anh mentioned, listen, there's no need to be afraid. Come back where you were sitting. take the food which is prepared, go give it to your wife. So he gave the food to his wife, she presented it before the mother, and they looked after the child, and then after she had ate to her stomach full, the food came back, and he presented it to the man. He said, now you eat. After eating, he mentioned, come to me in the morning, I will further assist you in whatever you need. So more or less, the moral of the story, his concern for the people around him. SubhanAllah, a thought just crossed my mind. We become concerned about the people at a far distance. We become concerned about people who are so far away. In the process, we completely forget the people who are next to us. That's the miracle of the internet, social media. We become so concerned about people in a different state, in a different country, depending on the circumstances, but usually, in the process, we completely forget the person who's right next to me needed something all along, and I turned a blind eye to him. So Umar radiallahu ta'ala, being concerned about the residents of Medina, his neighbors, and we also need to be mindful of such practices. So Umar radiallahu ta'ala, as this was his habit, another occasion, he once passed by a home alongside with one of his companions, I believe it was Abdurrahman ibn Auf radiallahu ta'ala. And as he passed by, he saw that there was a light within a house, late night. So he said, what's this about? Why is the light of this home lit? So he walked into the home and he saw an old man, and there was a slave girl singing before him with a bottle of wine in front of him. So when Umar radiallahu ta'ala he saw this, he said, I have not seen a worse night than this. An old man who's awaiting his death in this situation, a drunk in front of a singing girl. In this age, I have not seen a worse night than this. So the old man, he looked up and he said, what you did is far worse than what I have been doing. What you did is far worse than what I have been doing. He mentions that you prevented us from spying on people. Here you are spying yourself. You barged into my home. You're spying on me. Whereas your teachings are, do not spy on people. You did that. And secondly, you entered my home without permission. I have not seen something as worse as what you did, oh Amir al-Mu'mineen. So when he heard this, Umar radiallahu anh, he mentioned, you're speaking the truth. How right are you? He started to cry and he left. After leaving, he mentioned, oh Umar, may your mother cry over you. What if Allah does not choose to forgive you over this? What if Allah refuses to forgive you? What you've done was wrong. So he remained silent. He did not even tell Abdurrahman ibn Auf, who was waiting outside the home, what he saw. Until days passed by, and that old man, he did his best to ignore and to avoid Umar radiallahu anh wherever he would see him or find him to be. I don't want to see him. I don't want to confront him. He may punish me for that night. So as days passed, Umar radiallahu ta'ala did not speak or did not converse or get in touch with that man until he was seated in one of the halaqas that Umar radiallahu anh was within, and he saw the old man approach and sit at a distance. So he mentioned to the people around him, go and get him, bring him next to me. Go and tell him to come next to me. So they got up, they said, he's calling you. The man said, today is that day I was fearing the most. He's going to punish me. He's going to get even with me for that night. So he comes and he sits next to Umar radiallahu ta'ala an, and Umar radiallahu an, he whispers into his ear, he says, listen, I swear by the one who has sent Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam with the truth. Since that night, I have not told another soul for what I saw. I have not told anyone, even Abdurrahman who was with me, I did not tell him either. Since then, I have not informed anyone of what you did and what I saw. So the old man, he whispers back to Umar radiallahu anh, he mentions, I swear by the one who sent Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam with the truth and with the haqq, since then I have not touched and did what I did then again. Since then I did not go back to that act again. Again, the moral of the story, if you find a fault of someone, conceal it. Hide it. Give him some time. He'll repent. It is between him and Allah. Who are we to go and publicize of what we saw? Another occasion, Umar radiallahu anh walked into a home, and the man, he said, look, oh Umar radiallahu anh, what you did was far more worse than what I've been doing. So Umar radiallahu anh, he begged him for forgiveness. He said, forgive me. And then after seeking the forgiveness, he came out, he asked Abdurrahman, oh Abdurrahman, how can I reconcile? How can I expiate? What can I do to seek the forgiveness of Allah from this? Abdurrahman mentioned that you undo what you saw. You undo what you saw, and things will become okay. So he mentioned that if that's the case, I choose to forget what I saw. So the point being is concealing, hiding the faults of others. No one is perfect. Subhanallah. If you think that alcohol was forbidden in the time of Rasulullah ﷺ and some people were still engaged in consuming it in the time of Umar radiallahu anh, how could that be? But there were some people who still did so. But with time, they gained the closeness of the other companions and their way of dealing with them. And you know what? Concealing the faults. And they gained closeness to Allah ultimately and had become people who had completely forsaken alcohol. Completely forsaken anything that was prohibited within Islam. But it was with time. Now think of this. In our time, we find a youth who's not, who's doing something he shouldn't be doing, or she's involved in something she shouldn't be involved in. Yes, you monitor the situation and you do your best in making sure that both they come out of the haram, but you don't go and publicize it, because the harm of that will be, subhanallah, the youth of today are so courageous, they'll go out and say, you know what, I'm gonna do it regardless. Do what you want to do. You think you can stop? You're only you're stepping on their tail, really. So the moral is, the wisdom is that give them time. Remind them. Ud'u ila sabili rabbika bil hikmah. With wisdom approach them and deal with the situation. Not that you defame someone or you publicize their sin and fault, because that will lead them possibly even further than they were currently in, than they were previously in. So something just to think about as we're covering the story of Umar radiallahu anh. So when Umar radiallahu anh, he heard what the old man had to say, since that day, I did not do what you saw me do that night. Umar radiallahu anh, right away, he mentioned Allahu Akbar. So the Sahaba are thinking, what was that for? He just said the takbir. No one knew as to what it was for. Another occasion, whilst Umar radiallahu ta'ala, as he was roaming the streets, he came across a home. We have to stop a few minutes, inshallah. He heard a man singing vile poetry, lyrics, immoral statement and lines that he was uttering. So Umar radiallahu ta'ala, upon hearing this, right away he jumped the wall of the house. He jumped in and shouted out to the person. He said, O enemy of Allah, do you think that this sin of yours is concealed or Allah is unaware of it? Do you think so? That you get to do what you want, sing and say such lyrics and say such vile poetry, and Allah is not aware of what you're saying? What is wrong with you? So the man, he responded, he said, Oh Amir al-Mu'mineen, don't rush. Hold on a second. If I committed one sin, you committed 3. Don't jump to conclusions. If I did something wrong once, you just breached 3 of the commandments of Allah. What is that? He mentioned that, don't you know within the Quran it's mentioned, وَلَا تَجَسَّسُوا, do not spy on people, you just spied on me. That's sin number 1. Sin number 2, do you not know that Allah has mentioned, do not climb, jump over the walls, come from the main entrance of the house, the main door of the house, وَأْتُوا الْبُيُوتَ مِنْ أَبْوَابِهَا, come into the homes through their main entrance. You just breached that command of Allah. Sin number 2. Sin number 3, don't you know that you're not supposed to enter into anyone's home without their permission? Allah has mentioned, لا تدخلوا بيوتا غير بيوتكم حتى تستأنسوا وتسلموا على أهلها. That do not enter into a home as long as you're not granted permission. And when you do, Assalamu alaikum, you send salutations upon the household. You just entered, barged in without seeking my permission. So Umar radiallahu ta'ala an, right away, he stopped for a moment. He said, please, I ask you for a favor. What is it? Forgive me. I have forgiven you. He left. Silently, he left. Subhanallah. Upon an occasion, a man came before Umar radiallahu ta'ala and he started, saying things which weren't appropriate. And he started accusing Umar radiallahu ta'ala of being unjust. And the man had, a propaganda behind him. He had something else, behind his motives. So Umar radiallahu ta'ala became furious. The anger that was seen upon his face, that this man continues to accuse me. One accusation after the other, one accusation after the other. And as he's becoming furious, one of the companions saw Umar radiallahu ta'ala in that state. It's building up, it's boiling up. He quickly rushed, he said, "Oh Umar, oh Amir al-Mu'mineen, خُذِ الْعَفْوَ وَأْمُرْ بِالْعُرْفِ وَأَعْرِضْ عَنِ الْجَاهِلِينَ." He read that ayah, "Oh Umar radiallahu ta'ala an, you know what, hold on to forgiveness and enjoy which is good, and just ignore the ignorant ones." So when he mentioned this ayah before Umar radiallahu ta'ala an, there was that instant change, the instant reaction in the behavior, the changing of Umar radiallahu ta'ala an. There was not an atom worth of anger left on his face. Right away he became calm. All of a sudden, the Sahaba mentioned, the moment the book of Allah was put in front of Umar, he would stop. The moment the book of Allah was put in front of Umar, whichever verse was read before Umar radiallahu anh, right away he would stop. Regardless of the situation, he would never go beyond the commands of Allah or beyond the book of Allah. That was, something which was the equalizer for Umar radiallahu anh. And right away, he became silent and calm. So, subhanAllah, to think that, even the people in the time of Umar radiallahu ta'ala, how educated they were, and how they would recite the ayats of the Quran, at any given situation, just to calm themselves. SubhanAllah, nowadays, for us, what's an ayah? If you want to speak, okay, I need to have at least an hour or 2 or 3 or 4 of preparation time. What did you just say? An ayah? How can this ayah be related in this situation? SubhanAllah, there is an ayah for every situation that you may be in. It's just a matter of perception, how you relate it to the situation that you're in. So the Sahaba, they used the verses of the Quran within their daily activities. In that situation, he was able to calm. Now, had that companion tried to console Umar radiallahu ta'ala or to calm him through his own words, it would have never worked. It would have never worked. But when he heard the ayah of the Quran, right away he stopped. Another occasion, Umar radiallahu ta'ala, he was seen in the middle of the night running into a home by Talha radiallahu anh. When Talha radiallahu anh saw that, where's the Amir al-Mu'mineen going at this time of the night? And he walked into a home, an unknown home. Next morning, Talha radiallahu anh approached that house, walked in, and he saw that there was an elderly woman, handicapped, unable to move. He asked her, he said, "Did Umar radiallahu anh, Amir al-Mu'mineen, did he come to you? What was he here for?" She mentioned, "Yes, he has been coming to me for a very long time. He comes to me to tend to me, to my needs. He cleans my house. All of the chores that need to be completed, he does that for me. He looks after me and he leaves. That's what he comes for." Talha radiallahu anh, he mentioned, "Oh Talha, may you be destroyed. Were you trying to find a fault in Umar? Were you trying to search for a fault in Umar? May you be destroyed. What's wrong with you? How could you even think such?" And subhanAllah, to think that was Umar radiallahu ta'ala an, going into a house and serving the elderly, cleaning their home and doing what he can, even though he is Amir al-Mu'mineen. I'd like to stop here and say, look, listen, Islam has, 2 aspects to it within our lives. There is that public figure, there's that private figure. There's that public face, there's that private face. There are our a'mal, our salah, which people see, and there's those that no one sees but Allah. So are we as good enough as we seem to be when we're alone with Allah? The moral of Umar radiallahu anh serving the elderly woman in the middle of the night so that no one would know what he is doing. It was between him and Allah. How many of us have a habit that we've built that no one would know but me and Allah? And if Allah is involved within that habit, it must mean it's a righteous habit. It's a good habit. It's something that you do. So we live our days whilst the daytime when the world watches us. But how about try spending a night when it's just you and Allah, and there are no, there's no one around to see and watch you, because the halawa, inshallah, that will bring within your life, no one can, give that to you. Another story, or not? 29 minutes. You tell me your call. One story, inshallah? Yes. Small story. Inshallah. SubhanAllah. Since we have open discussions, let me just add this. Today I read a beautiful story, as alhamdulillah I'm trying to cover some of the steps as to how to bring up our children. The manners, the behavior, our treatment towards them, their adab, their akhlaq, and so and so. A beautiful story that really... So there was a boy, his mother, and this goes out for my sisters as well, how mindful she was in the upbringing of her child. So she would often mention to her son that, listen, he's in an early tender age. Salah isn't even obligatory upon him. That, listen, my son, make sure you pray your salah. Because when you do, in return, the reward is you'll get sweet. In that age, it was packets of sugar, which was something kids would love. And Allah will give you that. So what she would do, every time her son would go to pray or salah, she would take a packet of sugar and put it underneath her musalla. And when the boy would get up, wrap his musalla, he would see, okay, there's a packet of sugar. Allah has granted that to me because I prayed my salah. So that became a habit. Every time he would pray, lift packet of sugar, eat. Time passed until a day had come that the mother had to leave in a rush. She left. And after leaving the home, as she's in her journey, she remembered, I forgot to leave the packet of sugar underneath the musalla. And when my son will go to pray salah, he will lift the musalla, he will not find the packet of sugar there. So she made dua to Allah. She said, oh Allah, I've built this trust and this love for you in the hearts of my son. Oh Allah, please, let there be a packet of sugar underneath the musalla. I forgot to put it there. But if he doesn't find it, that trust will be broken. He'll be disappointed as the child, the young boy he is. She made the dua. She came home later in the evening. Son, did you pray salah? Yes, I did. Did you find a packet of sugar? Yes, I did. But mom, the packet of sugar that I tasted today tasted different than the others. It was far more sweet than any other packet of sugar you ever left for me. I attract your attention to the story of Maryam alayhi salam. When Zakaria alayhi salam came into the room of Maryam, he saw her eating different types of fruits. What did she say? What did she say? He mentioned, Ya Maryam, anna laki hadha. Where did this come from? Where did this come from? She mentioned, Huwa min indillah. It's from Allah. Inna Allah yarzuqu man yasha'u bighayri hisab. It's from Allah. Allah will grant to whomever He wants without any accountability. So when our level of iman will come to the level of our pious predecessors, we ourselves will see such things happening within our lives. Understand? So let me mention that one story which I was going to mention before I mention this. Or no?
Yes.
It's brief, inshallah. Umar radiallahu ta'ala an. Once again, during the night as he was roaming the streets of Medina, he came across a house of an Ansari companion of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Engaged in salah, reciting salah. Engaged in salah, reciting the Quran. He stopped to listen as to what the companion was reciting. There were the verses of Surah Tur. وَالطُّورِ وَكِتَابٍ مَسْطُورٍ فِي رَقٍّ مَنْشُورٍ. See, the thing is, when we recite the Quran, we don't usually enjoy it because most of the time we don't know the meaning of it. But if you know the meaning of the Quran, you're able to enjoy what you say, what you read, what you recite. So for them, Arabs, mashallah, their mother language. So as he's reciting, وَالطُّورِ وَكِتَابٍ مَسْطُورٍ فِي رَقٍّ مَنْشُورٍ وَالْبَيْتِ الْمَعْمُورِ وَالسَّقْفِ الْمَرْفُوعِ وَالْبَحْرِ الْمَسْجُورِ إِنَّ عَذَابَ رَبِّكَ لَوَاقِعٌ مَا لَهُ مِنْ دَافِعٍ. He came up to that portion of the ayah, Umar radiallahu ta'ala, something just struck him. He was struck in shock, in awe. He came off of his donkey, rested against the wall, and fell into this deep state of pondering, of contemplation. And he gets up, goes home, and becomes sick. Upon hearing these two ayahs, Inna adhaba rabbika lawaqi'. The near translation, for verily the punishment of your Rabb, your Allah, will happen. It will take place. Ma lahu min dafi'. There is nothing, no one that can prevent from that punishment descending, from happening. So these two verses, Umar radiallahu anh took to such into his heart that he went home, he became sick. People would visit him. No one knew what's the problem. Why is he ill? What are the symptoms of his sickness? No one could figure for what he is ill for. So there was no cure for it. He remained in that state for one entire month because of two ayats of the Quran. Inna adhaba rabbika lawaqi' ma lahu min dafi'. then he had become healthy and healed again. This was the taqwa of Umar radiallahu ta'ala an. There's more to mention inshallah, but hopefully inshallah the next session will conclude with the story of Umar radiallahu ta'ala an. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us the understanding of his deen.